I said it before, but I do like the graphics for this WrestleMania logo. It's nice. This is the first time that the WWF does something different for WrestleMania when it comes to the scenery. You may like it or not, but it's something to point out nonetheless. And by the way, Gorilla Monsoon is always a win. Jim Ross is always a win. His first ever appearance in WWF, as this was his first commitment. Isn't it insane that he would start as a commentator for the WWF at WrestleMania? Sure, he was already very well known with his work in WCW and elsewhere, but what a rub for him immediately. Dude, that elephant is gorgeous. At first, I thought it was an animatronic, but no, it's definitely real. Hopefully, it was treated well. Throughout the whole introduction, Jim Ross is immediately showing why he's an incredible asset, by the way, with commentating about everything. Honestly, this whole beginning is quite iconic, with this introduction for Randy and a great pop. I do stand that he should have been competing. Go check my greater booking video for an alternative timeline with different and hopefully greater booking. And then with with Bobby Heenan, which is always a win. Always ready to make a fool out of himself because it's comeuppance for what he does. It's lovely. Mr. WrestleMania shows up at WrestleMania. This is the weirdest introduction to Luna Vachon. Why would she care for HBK? But hey, introducing yourself at Mania was a good thing anyway. There's a bit of continuity with Sherry and the Royal Rumble incidents, but honestly, she's been completely forgotten since in the story, so I don't really know why she's here other than to create a contrived finish. A shame, as both women near the ring could have even had a match in the ring. I've said it before, this is the correct opener if you want to get the crowd going, but only if you give them a good finish too. A nice starting sequence with this bridge from Tatonka. They're trying to pull all the stocks here, but unfortunately it does slow down because Tatonka was a bit like the Warrior Light. He had a run down the aisle, so he needs a bit of resting time too. Very nice arm drag from Tatonka, actually, that's very good. 10 minutes in, and I can confidently say this is the best commentary of the year so far. Thank you so much, Jim Ross, with your precision and knowledge of wrestling and how to make a story good and interesting no matter how good or bad it is. There's a story about HBK hurting his shoulder, and at least it's an attempt at giving a target, and HBK can sell that, of course. It's HBK. After that post-hit, honestly that should have been the thing that builds to a hotter portion. Instead, we do go back on the mat, unfortunately, and the crowd is pretty silent, which is a shame. You can do more with such a match, and you should have done more. The shoulder breaker should have happened before the rest holds that followed the corner hit from HBK, honestly. So it's maybe more a problem of agenting or just layout of the match. Nice little switch in music. It was a bit low because the timing was off, but that's like the pre-dev version of the Shelton Benjamin kick. HBK gets control, and he does have some better offense and storytelling than Tatonka, so even with rest holds, he does give you some more things, like also his rugged good looks of 1993, with a very nice black and white outfit I enjoy a lot. I was wondering what this move was. It looked like he wanted to go for an armbar takedown, but yeah, there was some miscommunication there. The move exists though. And then it becomes an electric chair drop. Will that lead us to the ending sequence? It should. Tatonka up, because that's still the only way to call this. The normal sequence from Tatonka with his chops and a crossbody over the power slam first. That's nice. Perfect catch with a power slam. Honestly quite nice and looked pretty safe too, which is a nice extra. This is so cheap. It's so unfortunate too, as the crowd was just starting to get invested. They liked the match, they liked the Samoan drop, but why would you even do such a finish? Can't you just go clean? This was such a shame. The match was good, but it's so cheap to finish it that way, and then want to create some heat for Luna when she attacks Sherry. The attack looked good, but you know, you could have still had a finish that was a bit cheap, but with a decisive finish. I don't know, maybe just make it so that Sherry gets attacked by Luna Vachon, Tatonka sees it, gets distracted, and he takes a teardrop, suplex, or a sweet chin music for his troubles. It's so easy to make a more involved and exciting decisive finish. Now this match is the most physical, the one where everyone goes the hardest, and we have some great moves here. The Steiners are very exciting at that time, and both men go hard, like the head shrinkers do too. You may say that it's always the same thing with the Steiners, and first, no, that's not true, and second, no, that's not true. What even was that? This was the most insane stun gun I've ever seen in my entire life, I swear to you. This was a stun guillotine. The match slows down with Scott down, but they don't actually stay too long on the mat. They give you more things. This is a tag match. They can rest better and for a long amount. So there's no real need for them to go too slow. You're just building for the hot tag, that's all really. Headshots don't affect the head shrinkers, and a very nice thrust kick. The build is long to the hot tag, but this is WrestleMania. Give the head shrinkers as much as possible before the tag, so that you see a good amount from them too. They deserve it. They're good with the right opponents, and those were the right opponents on the day. Damn, Samu jumped high on that one. It's crazy how athletic these guys could be too, and Fatu at that point was probably around 100 pounds lighter than when he becomes Rikishi, and you can see that he is also quite athletic. Rick does get the hot tag, and it's a very nice one, but again, headshots don't work, so I don't know about that, but it leads to... the single greatest move of this WrestleMania. A little botched, but still very nice. It even got Bobby Heenan to react for faces. A WrestleMania Frankensteiner. Even if Jim Ross called it a Steiner line at first, he does miss a few calls, but his enthusiasm still gets it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be as good as Doink gets at this point for his gimmick. His facial expressions are great in this interview, but yeah, then the match takes place. Still the looks at the camera though, those are lovely, and his demeanor is the same right now as on all the Raws prior. It's really good. The crowd is really not interested in Crush, it feels like. There's very little noise for this match, and this is only the third one, and we are less than an hour in. You can't really say that this is crowd fatigue. There was a dark match though, gotta stay fair. It almost feels like Crush is working heel at the beginning, which is nice to try and push him into a more aggressive mindset, but you haven't shown Crush enough on TV to make people interested compared to Doink. He was a much more interesting character, really. Even when you listen, honestly, people were slightly harder for Doink, but this match does have low heat. Also because of what that crowd is, and they're mostly families and gamblers taking a break. Las Vegas, baby. The crowd can be a good one for the already established guys, but bad for literally anyone that doesn't have mainstream appeal. Unfortunate, because this match should have been better. That foot on a jumping Doink does get a bit of sound, but then they negate it by going back to nothing for a bit, before ultimately a fine power slam. But the problem with this match is the lack of follow-up attacks and real speed. Did you know, apparently there was a finish where the grip was supposed to make paint spew out of Doink's hair. Actually, I would have maybe preferred that finish to Twin Magic. Doink's expression after the Twin Magic is good. This finish, of course, is incredibly silly, but Doink's reaction, because Matt Bourne is a gem, is good. Whenever he makes that serious face, it's fantastic. I don't get why they even tried to make it seem as if there wasn't a second Doink. This is stupid. It makes everyone in WWF seem even dumber than they are. It's very bad. A complete piss break match. A shame for Razor Ramon. Once again, go check my rebooking for a better way to use him, and most people on the card, really. Backlund's first WrestleMania. And man, was there absolutely no noise for this match? And it's not what happens in it that gives you some bang for your buck. It's a shame. The talent is still there to make something at least serviceable for a show like Mania, but they really misuse people everywhere. The crowd chanting for Razor. They knew who was cool back in 1993 already. Always happy to see those worked punches, those are something. The way he cocks it back and makes that very fluid motion, it's nice to see. What isn't is the lack of crowd noise. What a weird atomic drop. It went so low, that was weird. But I guess it wasn't exactly bad. The selling job is, because I think that wasn't intended. And then the inside cradle finish. That's just interesting. But again, not exactly good to see, because there were no big moves from Razor Ramon. But I guess Backlund wasn't going to take those moves, unfortunately. Giving us the briefcase shot again. Nice. You know what's also nice? That magnificent white suit from DiBiase. This is something else, man. And with the belt, it makes it even better.
And you know something, Okerlund? You think Beefcake's face looks bad. Wait until you get a load of Hogan's.
Kayfabe reason for Hogan having his black eye. There are conflicting reports. You already know that. You've seen videos about it anyway, probably. I won't bore you with the details. This is the second time that the champion comes out first. I don't like that for a title match, but then again, did you expect Hogan to come out first? Be real. Yeah, Hogan gets the biggest pop-up that day so far. Man, that black eye is worse than I remembered. It's really bad, actually. Wow. Weird how Hogan was leaner now after the steroid scandal, huh? That's just a coincidence. Come on.
Well, because he knows who's behind it.
Why does that almost sound like a threat? Like he really knows who's behind it. Savage. Yeah, that's a bloodshot eye. Hogan activates the Sharingan. Damn. This match will just be building to the Hogan hot tag, a formula that will be used for the next few years in WCW too, and fail. Well, yeah, don't hit people with your hands when they have a mask, idiot. Oh, they didn't actually just build to the tag. He just enters, and he still gets an amazing pop because, I mean, it's Hogan in the early 90s. Oh, wow. Some motions against authority. What was that? That's interesting from Hogan. Not something you really see.
Coward's way out does not work at WrestleMania IX.
But it did work with Shawn Michaels. Do you see why this doesn't work? It's completely inconsistent, and it's not good at all because of it. Like, sure, it's good to have a fight that continues without a count-out, but why did you DQ HBK before then? Double standards. Hogan has to sell now, and you know, he doesn't really sell well because he's an entertainer, and he's one that has not been shown as anything other than dominant. So why sell? Wait, why does he wake up like the Undertaker? This is so dumb. Interesting to give the hot tag from Hogan to Beefcake. I'm okay with it, but the crowd definitely doesn't have the same reaction. Imagine having to feed for Beefcake. Man, poor Rotunda, he didn't deserve that, really. Guys, they said his face was 100% fixed. Can we not talk as if his face is completely wrecked? They broke his nose only last time in kayfabe. Come on. And now we're building to the Hogan hot tag. And yeah, it's hard with that crowd, of course. I can't believe I'll be saying this, but Jimmy Hart, you're not a referee. Even if you change your shirt, idiot. It's another absurd finish, seriously. At least it finishes normally with a DQ finish, even if it should be for Hogan and Beefcake, because Money Inc. used the briefcase before the mask was used. Sure, it's Danny Davis, which deserved it back in 1987, but this is 1993. Come on. I don't even know how this crowd should feel after this, you know? They should feel incredibly shortchanged because of the finish of every match except the Steiner so far. It doesn't matter how much you pose, you know, you still lost the match. And this devalues yourself and the champions too. It's so unfortunate. Sure, there's noise. There will always be noise for Hogan in the early 90s. This is a mainstream crowd. They probably don't even know about the allegations against him for steroids here. But man, if you know, you know. He's been posing for 5 minutes. Can we move on? Sure, there's money. Yay.
Tonight, the Lexus
He fucked that one up perfectly. This is maybe the best mistake I have ever heard. The Lexorcist. Oh, this might genuinely be the funniest thing at this Mania. Most involved entrance so far, Luger was shown as somewhat of a star. The Lexorcist. Good pop for Perfect. Once again, on paper, this is a very appealing match actually. And then you remember Luger has barely wrestled a competitive match in over a year since the WCW days. And then you review your expectations down, even with an in-ring leader like Perfect. Why? Because Perfect blanked out on the plan for the entirety of it. I like the tentative start from both though. The slower pace at the beginning here makes sense, and it shows that Luger can hang with Perfect. The first 2 minutes make you believe that this match may be as good as Flair vs Perfect on Raw, seriously. This is starting really well. That slap, wow, why is this match unintentionally hilarious? And this is the first time we have to see Luger sell, and that chop was so loud, it woke the crowd up.
And Luke, thank goodness for next year, huh, Ross? Indoor plumbing comes to Oklahoma.
Holy, that's such a savage roast. Dude, this trio, I know that there could be better precision and timing some places, but I really like this commentary trio right there. Targeted offense from both, one on the legs, the other on the lower back. Once again, I like this, but look at Luger. He seems to be out of breath already, and he's not been doing much other than selling and slowing things down. He definitely was not ready to come back on the ring because he's not been given enough adversity to build his stamina up in matches or work on psychology instead too. However, I may also put that on the fault of Perfect because there was no plan in the match. So maybe he's just stalling for Perfect's sake. Whenever Perfect goes on offense, there's a bit of a hard time to feed from Luger because he does sound very winded. Can't say much as I'd be on Yokozuna levels of exhaustion. Then again though, I am not a super athlete like the Lexorcist. It does slow down though, because again, I don't think Perfect's in his right mind about what move to do at what time, and so communication has broken down between both men. This was confirmed by Luger on his interview with Chris Van Vliet, by the way, that Perfect blanked out on the match layout. But that missile dropkick, that definitely should have gotten a bigger reaction. Like what, guys? Do you want to see a 450 or what? A bit of a cheap finish, but I don't dislike that one as much. I just dislike when it happened. The bionic elbow. At least it's something. I think you could have just given him a clean win with that elbow right after the slide pin though. This almost felt like a match where Perfect was going to announce a retirement at the beginning. And then it leads to HBK and Perfect having an interaction backstage. That's interesting, and you kept him usually strong enough to make that correct, right? That trash can shot was something, by the way. Happy that these two got to work together in house shows for the next few months. At least there's that. People were so eager to see Savage in the ring. So eager. Would have given them something for real, something to sink their teeth into for once. Somehow, to me, they made the suit look even worse because it has no details now and no texture. A bare ass is what he has now too.
Let's see this.
Oh man, this is probably a top 5 entrance from The Undertaker. Would be even higher if this was by night, but that vulture and himself on the chariot looking like this, my god, he looks absolutely insane here. This is brilliant. The guy behind the cart actually high-fiving people on the way. Get the things you can when you can. You may never have another opportunity at Mania, so get your bag. The difference between Taker and Gonzalez, it is a striking visual, but you could have just had 50 different stronger matches. But this isn't a match. By just staying up and fighting against someone like him, Taker can get a reaction. This is why he was special, by the way. Yeah, you may think that there's nothing good from this match, but any move or counter from Taker gets a reaction. So this counts for something, because he was one of the only ones to get a reaction that good. Sure, the selling from Gonzalez sucks, but it doesn't matter if Taker is able to be himself, which he was at the beginning of this match. Unfortunate that Taker has to sell for him after, because the best part was when Taker was in offense. Taker in offense is really much better. And then the chloroform. The worst finish for a WrestleMania match, I think almost ever. At least for the streak. Did you need a giant to use chloroform in a match for real? What is the thinking behind this? And then that insane pop when he wakes up. That is actually fantastic. I'd almost say it makes it worth it for the aftermath of the match, because honestly, it's an insane reaction from the crowd, and the jumping clothesline is insane too to take Gonzalez down. Once again, even in one of the worst angles of all time, there is some good to find, because Taker was insanely over. And the announcement for the result is also a great pop for Taker. A semi-main that even if the in-ring and storytelling was wrong, it makes the crowd happy because they just love the Undertaker. Oh no, the red and yellow thundercloud over the main event. You can say there's thunder in paradise. Get it? Nice, at least the champion comes out second for this one match. A good enough pop for Bret, this man always can get a reaction. From the first move, that dropkick, Bret Hart tries to get this crowd extremely excited, and at the beginning it really works, as he goes into a flurry of offense and makes Yokozuna trip and fall, and he goes down with a great couple of moves too. A brilliant start from a man that is always a win. USA says the crowd to a match between a Samoan and a Canadian, so really, they're for Yokozuna. Once again, every time Bret Hart gets a move in, there's a great pop. And that sidekick is brilliant, even if that was the move that signaled Yokozuna wanted to go to the finishing sequence early. Great bulldog, and again, what a crowd reaction. He gets all his moves in, and it's great to see for Bret. The timing of the moves is great everywhere too. The selling is on point. I forgot that this match was actually quite great before the finish. Sharpshooter, but then the salt in the eyes of Bret. The crowd gets his wind completely sucked in a vacuum. New champion, and the match was good. Actually good, if you disregard the finish. Bret should have just kept the title, man, really. Being able to work with Yokozuna this well, it's a magnificent feat. And then Hogan. The crowd pop. That is the only win here. Sure, they make the people there leave happy, but I can tell you, I think this is one of the most damaging moves the WWF could have made in 1993. This would hurt the WWF so much in the next couple of years, you have no idea. But also, you could have salvaged it if Bret Hart had agency. There it is, folks. I hope you had a great Christmas. Here's my gift to you guys. A bad show. I'm sorry, I'm not a good friend, am I? In more seriousness, there are some good parts in this. HBK and Tatonka was a fine enough opener for portions of it, but unfortunately it lost steam and had a bad finish. But still, it was HBK in a Mania match. Can it really go fully wrong? The Steiners had a good match and a clean finish, which is rare enough to point out, but also with some great power moves and things you only see during big shows, which is what WrestleMania should be. The next thing to actually talk about is just the Hogan and Beefcake match, right? The crowd still likes Hogan here, because this isn't one that truly knows about the ins and outs of wrestling at that point, and so they were hot even if the match wasn't. Perfect and Luger was not that bad. It could have done with a couple more minutes and a clean finish. Luger can take the victory clean and not hurt Perfect's momentum too much, because Perfect was still a great face that the WWF needed, and he couldn't lose momentum to someone like the Lexorcist, especially when you make him go into a program against HBK too. Taker surprised me. Yes, this is not a match but an angle, but every time The Undertaker was in offense, the crowd was smitten hot. And then, I forgot how good Bret Hart tried to work with Yokozuna. This is the match of the night if you forget about the ending, because Bret Hart really went for it and gave Yokozuna a brilliant back and forth match. I'm very surprised with that match and the amount I found myself enjoying it. Then yes, Hogan at the end. Typical, right? Again, the crowd ate it up, and that really counts for something. And the crowd at the end does have its impact for the whole thing, and also for my rating. Speaking of it, I think this show is on par with the Rumble, only because the Rumble match itself is quite weak and pushed the show down. Here, WrestleMania was at a constant level with some surges and dips in quality, but nothing as dramatic as that other pay-per-view in my opinion. This makes me give WrestleMania IX a 4 out of 10, which may sound like a high rating, but remember that I'm giving this a rating based on the quality of 1993, and when you consider the last couple of Raws, I think this is fair to say that this was way better even through its faults. This is then far from the worst Mania. You see, back in 2022, I had made videos that are unfortunately lost to time. One of them was on the EGA on WrestleMania 1. I definitely rank that show worse than this one on a technical standpoint, even when counting the different year it took place in, even if again the crowd does give it some good points. I don't even really think this is a bottom 5 WrestleMania, actually. I can think of 27, 11, 2, 4, 1 that are, worse right off the bat, and that makes already 5, and I'm missing some definitely. Like, I could think about WrestleMania 2000 if there wasn't the tag ladder match. So, there we go. This was the last video for 2025. My first year on YouTube on this channel. Let's continue to grow together in 2026, and let's make it together all the way to the next pay-per-view, King of the Ring 1993. However, I will see you next Friday for episode 11 of Raw, guys.